After years of working with strippers and escorts and hot models, I discovered that the way to a man's heart isn't through his stomach. It's through his fantasy. Because the guys eat with the stomach, but we keep our feelings in our fantasies. A stripper can't cook. A hot model doesn't eat. But they're great at feeding a guy his fantasy with feelings. Like, I'm feeling hungry for a woman in stiletto heels who's great with brass and loves sliding down a pole. If the way to a man's heart was truly through his stomach, then Marie Callender would be a sex symbol. Picture Marie Callender on the cover of Playboy, featuring her hot, delicious muffins. My muffin tops bring all the boys to the yard, Betty Crocker. I'm better than yours, Betty Crocker. I'm better than yours. The way to a man's heart is through his fantasy. If you're truly talking about the way to a man's heart, it's through his fantasy. The way to feed a man's heart is to feed his fantasy. Fantasies are the guy's heart like cheese is on a woman's brain. I've never met a woman who didn't have cheese on her brain. It's like the perfect way to a woman's fantasy is to feed her cheese and not talk. Be her fondue fetish. If a guy really wanted to tap into a woman's fantasy, he would just be a fondue fetish with cheese and be quiet. Shh, no talking during fondue fetish. The way to a man's heart is through his fantasy. And there's no better way to tap into a man's fantasy than when the perfect bikini babe. Why? Because guys have a perfect bikini babe fantasy. From James Bond movies to the Bikini Carwash movies to the local bikini bar to local bikini contests. Guys have a bikini babe fantasy. Even more, they have a fantasy of a bikini babe in the comfort of their own home. You think Hugh Hefner built the Playboy mansion just so he could have extra bathrooms? You want to tap into your man's fantasy, to tap into his heart, to truly feed him his heart? Then tap into his fantasy with the perfect bikini babe. Why? Because once you're tapping into a man's mind with the perfect bikini babe, you're tapping into his fantasy realm. You're feeding his mind. And then that's when the real fun begins. It's like getting high on cheese.